So here is the alphabet in Spanish. If we look at it, we'll notice that it is very similar to the alphabet in English, right? To the English alphabet. There is just one extra letter, that's all, right? It looks the same, but after N, we have this special letter called ñ, and we'll talk about it in a second. Okay, so let's just go through the whole thing, the whole alphabet, and let's see like the names for each one of the letters. Okay, so let's go through the alphabet and let's look at all the different letters that we have. So the first letter in the alphabet is going to be A. The second one is going to be B. Next one is going to be C or C. Next one is going to be D. Next one is going to be E. Next one is going to be F. Next one is G. Next one is H. Next one is going to be I. Next one is J. Next one is K. Next one is L. Next one is going to be M. Next one is going to be N. Next one is ñ, our very own Spanish letter, ñ. Next one is another vowel, it's going to be O. Next one is P. Next one is Q. Next one is R. Next one is S. Next one is T. Next one is U. Next one is V. Next one is called V doble, or in some places it's also called doble U. Next one is X, and the next one it also has two names, right? We can call it Y, or we can call it Y, which literally means Greek eye. And the last letter is Z, or also Zeta. So I want to talk about the 5 vowels in Spanish for a second. The 5 vowels are A, E, I, O, U. Or in English that would be A, E, I, O, U. Okay? So vowels in Spanish are very cool because they are pure vowels, which means that we don't change the position of our mouth when like saying them. In English, for example, you'll see that if I say U, right, my mouth is moving, like it starts in one position and it ends in a different one. Or if I say A, it's the same thing. While in Spanish, each vowel has just one mouth position, right? So if I do them one by one, that will be A, E, I, O, U. Okay? Since the position of the mouth does not change, right? I could hold those vowels for longer and it would work. Okay? I could do A, E, I, O, U. And the cool thing about them is that they always have that sound. It doesn't matter where in the word they are. It doesn't matter which letter they have before, which letter they have after, etc. Right? In English, that doesn't happen. Like sometimes the same vowel can have different sounds, depending on like where in the word they are, like which letter goes before, etc. So a lot of times in English, in order to pronounce a word, you just have to know how it is pronounced. A lot of times you cannot infer it from the way it is written, but in Spanish, the vowels will always have their own sound and we will always pronounce them, and they will sound the same on every word. It doesn't matter, again, like which word they are in or what's before or after them. So I would ask you at this point to pause the video and try to say the 5 vowels. Let me say them again. A, E, I, O, U. Or holding them for a little longer. A, E, I, O, U. Okay, so we are going to go over a few considerations of some of the letters, right? The cool thing is that It is the same alphabet that we have in English, so that's good. We already know those letters, but they behave a little differently, right? We already talked about the vowels, but there are also some considerations in some consonants that we need to talk about. The first one that it surprises a lot of people, right, is that B and V, right, which are B and V in English, they're pronounced the same in Spanish, and that's weird for people, right? It's like, how are they pronounced different, and like, why do you have both if they sound the same? Well, we just have both for historical reasons, and like some words are spelled with one, some words are spelled with the other one, but they sound the same. And the sound is really more similar to the B sound in English. It's just a little softer. In general, consonants tend to be softer in Spanish, right? And with the B, that's the way it works, right? So let me say two words, right? The verbs to drink and to live, right? They will be pronounced beber, vivir. The only thing that's different is the vowel, right? One of them has an E and the other one has an I, but the B sound is the same in both of them. They are both pronounced as if it were a B. We don't have vivir, it's just vivir. Again, beber, vivir. So I'll ask you to pause the video for a second and try to say those two words. The next consideration is about two former letters that are no longer in the alphabet, and they were not really letters, they were combinations of two existing letters. So the first one was the combination of C and H, right? And that used to be considered a letter, and it was called che, and it was between C and D, right? So the alphabet used to go A, B, C, che, D. The other combination of letters that used to be considered a letter is the double L, and that was called eye, and that was between L and M. So the alphabet would go L, eye, M, N, etc. So these two, they were dropped from the alphabet like sometime in the 90s. Until then, they were considered letters. They are no longer considered letters, but they still behave like consonants, meaning they have their own sound. So this is important. Anytime that we see C and H together, it's not a C plus an H, it's its own thing. And with all 5 vowels, it will sound cha, che, chi, cho, chu. And the two L's together, this is also important. They have their own sound. It doesn't sound like an L anymore. With all 5 vowels, it's going to be pronounced ya, ye, yi, yo, you. As a side note on this one, there used to be a slightly different sound for the two L's, that it is almost lost. Like, it's still done in some regions, but most times the two L's, the eye, it's pronounced the same way that we pronounce the Y today. The next consideration is about H or H. H in Spanish, it is a silent letter, so we just ignore it. Every time that we see it, we ignore it. We just have it for historical reasons. We have to spell words right, and we have to write our H whenever we need to, but we will never pronounce it. The exception, of course, is when we have CH that we just discussed, right? And then that is not a C plus an H, but it has its own sound. The next consideration is about K and W, right? K and W or W. Those are really borrowed letters. They don't appear in native Spanish words, but in some borrowed words like whiskey or katana, we spell them with those letters. A lot of times the Academy will try to come up with an alternative spelling that uses Spanish native letters, but most times people will spell them, with the original spelling in the language from which we are borrowing, and then we'll use W and K in those cases. Another consideration, R has 2 different sounds. We have a strong R, which is the famous rolling R, that for a lot of people it takes a lot of practice to say it, right? It's that R sound. So we will always pronounce words with a rolling R when we have an R at the beginning of the word, like in rosa, or when it's in the middle of the word and it is doubled, when it's a double R, for example, carro. Also, we will pronounce the R as a rolling R when it goes after N, L, or S. Okay, so an example would be sonrisa, which means a smile. And the last consideration is about Y, which is called Y or Y in Spanish. It has two sounds. It has one sound when it's at the end of a word, and in that case we pronounce it just like I, just like our vowel E. So for example, hoy or estoy, it is pronounced just like an I. And in any other case, when it's like in the middle of a word or at the beginning, we'll pronounce it ya, ye, yi, yo, you, with all 5 vowels. An example would be yo or hoyo or ayer. Now we need to talk about certain letters that have some special behaviors. And these behaviors, the good thing is that they always hold, they always behave in the same way. So if we learn them, then it is very predictable how to pronounce like all the different words that use them, okay? So the first one is the C. So in Spanish, we already said that we don't use K since it's really a borrowed letter. So instead of that, we'd use C for that sound. The problem is that C doesn't sound K with all 5 vowels. It sounds K with A, O, and U. So that would be ka, ko, ku. The problem is when we put C with E or C with I, it does not sound ke, ki. For spelling the sounds ke and ki, we need to use the letter Q, and it's followed by a silent U. So it's Q and U together, and we can think of it as a special consonant. It's a silent U that always follows Q. In Spanish, anytime that we see a Q, it's going to be followed by U, and after that, it's always going to be either E or I, okay? So the way we spell the sounds ka, ke, ki, ko, ku is as follows. Ka, ke, ki, ko, ku. So what happens when we put C with an E or C with an I? Well, we get a different sound. The sound that we get is the, thi, or it's also pronounced se, si. So what's the deal with the 2 different pronunciations? Well, in Spain, and not in all of Spain, like only in central and northern Spain, we have this sound that it's similar to the TH in English, right? In the word thunder, for example, so we will have that sound in English. But in southern Spain and in all of Latin America, that sound does not exist. So C with an E and C with an I in southern Spain and Latin America will always be pronounced se and si, just like an S, okay? So in central and northern Spain, we have the th sound, and the way we spell it, we use a Z with A, O, and U. So that will be tha, tho, thu. But with E and I, we cannot use Z. We have to use the C instead, that we could not use before to get the ke and ki sound. I hope that makes sense, okay? So for the sound tha, the, thi, tho, thu that we use in central and northern Spain, the spelling will be tha, the, thi, tho, thu, okay? And then we have our S, right, which in all of Spain and all of Latin America, it's pronounced just like the English S, right? So with all 5 vowels, that will be sa, se, si, so, su. So again, in Spain, we differentiate these sounds, tha, the, thi, tho, thu, and sa, se, si, so, su. But in southern Spain and in all of Latin America, those 2 columns will be pronounced the same way, sa, se, si, so, su, okay? What we do not have in Spanish, like anywhere, we don't have it in Spain, we don't have it in Latin America, is the English vibrant Z. There is no vibrant. Our Z in Spain, the tha, the, si, so, su, is voiceless, like our vocal cords are not vibrating. We don't have the Z sound. If you do it, it's not really a big deal. It will just sound like you have an accent, but since we don't have that sound, there will not be any confusion, like we'll understand you. But if you can, try to avoid doing the vibrant English Z, right? So again, sa, se, si, so, su in Spain, sa, se, si, so, su in Latin America, and then an S is everywhere, sa, se, si, so, su. So here are some words to pronounce to see if this all makes sense. Here are the words. I'm going to give you a few seconds to try to pronounce them. You can pause the video and try to pronounce them based on the rules that we just saw. Okay, so here is how I would pronounce those words. We have queso, cuco, zapato in Spain, or zapato in southern Spain and Latin America. Cereza in Spain, or cereza everywhere else. Zueco or sueco. Caza or casa. And the last one, casa everywhere. So the second to last, caza or casa, right? In Spain we would differentiate it, we would pronounce it caza. In southern Spain and Latin America, the last two words would be pronounced the same way, casa. So the last thing that we need to discuss is J and G, or in Spanish, J and G. So J, J, it has the same sound with all 5 vowels, and that sound is ja, je, ji, jo, hu. In some regions like in Spain and in some regions in Latin America, that sound is slightly softer. It's more similar to the English H, so it will sound ja, je, ji, ho, hu. Let me do that again. Ha, he, hi, ho, hu. For me, my native way of saying it, I'm from Madrid, right? So I'll say ha, he, hi, ho, hu. It's very guttural, okay? But you can do it either way and it's totally fine. The G, however, it has the following problem. With A, O, and U, and this is kind of similar to the C that we discussed earlier, with A, O, and U, it's going to be pronounced ga, go, gu. However, with E and I, it's going to be pronounced he and he, okay? So it's just the same sound that we get with a J. So in order to get the ge and gi sounds, we have to put a silent U between the G and the E, or the G and the I. So that will be ge and gi. So the sounds ha, he, hi, ho, hu are spelled as follows, right? For E and I, we have the option of spelling it with a J or a G, and that will depend on the word. Some words are spelled with J and some words are spelled with G. And the sounds ga, ge, gi, go, gu are spelled as follows, okay? Ga, ge, gi, go, gu. Okay, guys, so that was it about the alphabet. If you want to learn more, feel free to go to our website and take a class with us in person if you're in New York, or online if you are anywhere else. Thank you so much for watching.